It's not time to panic. Today in the Quadratec Academy, we're replacing a clock spring. Hey, Rob here for Quadratec. Welcome to another episode of the Quadratec Academy, where we walk you through different tips and tricks on maintaining, owning, and working on your vehicle. Today, we're covering a very common problem that a lot of you out there that own an 07 through 18 Jeep Wrangler JK will probably experience somewhere throughout the course of owning that vehicle. With the Wrangler being an open air vehicle, one that you can take the top off, the doors off, a lot of interior components are exposed to the elements, to humidity, to dust ingress, and over time it can cause some common failures. One of those very common failures being right here with the clock spring. Now, if you're not familiar with what the clock spring is or what its job is in your vehicle, it's actually located right behind your steering wheel. It's got a circuit board inside that actually allows 360 degrees of communication between all of the different controls on your steering wheel and the dash, so that you're not getting twisted up wires in there when you're spinning your steering wheel around. That clock spring can pass that data communication back and forth without getting tangled. Now, commonly, when that clock spring fails, whether that's moisture that's gotten inside or dust that's gotten inside, you're going to lose functions like your steering wheel controls. Your horn may start acting up. It may actually start sounding incrementally when you're not actually activating the horn. You may get some of your gauges on the dash failing randomly or error codes on the dash. And you can get rid of all of that by simply installing a new clock spring. Now, while this job may seem intimidating because you are removing the steering wheel and the airbag from the vehicle, it's actually one that's very simple, and you can save yourself some money by tackling this job right at home yourself. In fact, you really don't need any specialized tools aside from a steering wheel puller, and you may even be able to get by without one, but I will recommend it to make your job a whole lot easier. The only tools that you'll really need are going to be a T20 Torx driver, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 10mm socket, and a 13mm socket. And we actually have a steering wheel puller available from Performance Tool for you at a very reasonable price. And the only additional tool you'll need with that puller is a 15mm socket. So with that, why don't we go ahead and dive into this project? Because we are dealing with the airbag, it is very important that the first step we do is go ahead and disconnect the positive and negative terminals from our battery under the hood. Now, with our battery successfully disconnected, we can move inside the vehicle and start removing our steering wheel. The first step to remove the airbag and horn assembly is to remove the two 10mm bolts securing it in place. There's one on the driver's side, on the back of the steering wheel, and one on the passenger side. With the two bolts removed, we can now slide the horn and airbag assembly towards you. We'll disconnect the horn connection on the back side, followed by the black and the yellow airbag connectors on the back side of the unit by squeezing the tabs and removing them. We can set the airbag aside. Now we can disconnect our electrical connection from our steering wheel to the clock spring by pulling it towards us. Then we'll remove the 13mm bolt, securing the steering wheel in place. Having an impact wrench can make this much easier. With the bolt removed, it's time to remove the steering wheel. You may be able to simply pull on the steering wheel to pull it off of the splines. However, if your steering wheel's never been removed before, having a steering wheel puller for this job will make it much easier. The steering wheel puller from Performance Tool simply slips right into the two tabs already in place on the steering wheel. Align the collar in the center bolt hole location and tighten it down with your impact wrench to pull the steering wheel right off of the splines. Next, we'll remove a single small T20 screw from the bottom side of the steering column plastics, followed by two larger screws that are held up deep in the steering column. You'll need a long handle T20 Torx screwdriver or long T20 Torx bit to remove these two screws. With the three screws removed from the column, we can separate the two halves by gently pulling on them. They should snap apart. We'll start by removing the top half of the column cover first. Then we can raise the column back into the highest position so that we can remove the lower portion of the cover next. Now, there are three T20 Torx screws holding the clock spring in place. One here on the front facing you, a second that will access from the top on the outer driver's side of the steering column, and a third that will access again from the top side on the inner or passenger side of the column. With the 3 screws removed, start by pulling the clock spring and stalk assemblies from the outside of the vehicle first, rotating it around to remove it from the steering column. We can now lay it down and disconnect the 4 electrical connectors on the back side of the clock spring. At this point, we can go ahead and swap over our stalk assemblies for both the lights and turn signals, as well as our wipers from our existing clock spring to the new clock spring. There is a single Phillips head screw on each side holding each one of the stalks in place. With the 2 Phillips head screws removed, we can then slide each assembly outward to remove it from the clock spring. Next, we can reinstall them onto our new clock spring, paying special attention to the slotted tabs, making sure that they align. We'll start by sliding the 1 stalk in first, routing our wires up over the top of the clock spring in the provided channel, and then we can slip the other stalk into place. We'll secure both with the Phillips head screws we just removed in the previous step. Before we slide our new clock spring and stalk assemblies onto the column, we'll go ahead and reconnect those 4 electrical connectors that we previously disconnected on the backside. And then we can begin by angling that assembly in towards the center of the vehicle, rotating it outward to slip it over top of the steering column splines. With it in place, we'll re-secure it with the 3 T20 Torx screws that we previously removed, 2 that will access from the top side, 1 behind each of the steering stalks, and a third will access at the front side on the lower right half. At this point, we can reinstall the steering column plastics. We'll begin by raising the column to the highest position so that we can install the lower half of the cover first, sliding it around the ignition cylinder, locking it into place. Now we can lower the column down so that we can slip the top half of the cover into place, paying special attention to the 2 alignment tabs on each side, sliding them into place. They'll click together, and then we can re-secure the 2 halves with the 3 screws previously removed. 2 long ones install up, 1 on each side first, and finally the 3rd small screw at the bottom. Before we install the steering wheel, it's important to pay special attention to the splines. There is a small gap in the splines on the top of the steering column that you'll notice. There is a matching gap in the splines on the steering wheel. By aligning the 2, they'll slip right together in the appropriate orientation. Go ahead and start by feeding the 2 electrical connectors from the clock spring through the top half of the opening on the back of the steering wheel. Align the splines and slide it into place. We'll apply a small amount of blue thread locker to our bolt before we re-secure it in place. Using an impact driver can be helpful to tighten this bolt to between 37 and 39 foot-pounds. You can also use a torque wrench. However, it is slightly difficult because the steering wheel will move while you're trying to torque that bolt. At this point, we can remove the alignment tab from the clock spring by pulling the white tab first, followed by the yellow tabs, so that we can reconnect the electrical connector from our steering wheel to the new clock spring. Finally, we can make our 2 connections to our airbag. The black matches with the black connector, while the yellow matches with the yellow. And the 3rd connection and final to make is the 2-pin connector for the horn. With all the connections made, carefully place the horn and airbag assembly back into the steering wheel, re-securing it with a 10mm bolt on the driver's side, followed by the 10mm bolt on the inner or passenger side. And with that last 10mm bolt secured, holding our airbag and horn assembly back in place in the steering wheel, that virtually finishes up our job of installing a replacement AccuPart clock spring. The only thing left to do is to go back under the hood, reconnect the positive and then the negative terminal on our battery to fully finish up our install. If you want to find out any more information or to purchase an AccuPart clock spring or the Performance Tool steering wheel puller that I used today, you can click that info button to head to Quadratec.com. Of course, if you have any comments or questions or you need help installing a clock spring in your vehicle, you can leave those for me down in the comment section below. Or if you have an idea or suggestion for a job you'd like to see me do right here in the Quadratec Academy, I'd love to hear those as well. If you like these videos and you haven't already, do me a huge favor, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as the notification icon, so be sure to catch all of our latest videos right here from the Quadratec Academy. Till next time, I'm Rob. I'll see you out on the trail.